from an undisclosed location in the Great Western Desert in the land of the free and autonomous Native American people. The 2024 presidential campaign needs time to return all US land back to their rightful owners. This is the Benzyme Podcast.
Having my lovely hot lemon water, as I have in China, early in the morning. It's a beautiful but brisk day. There's a cold snap blowing all through this part of the country with pretty bad consequences for the kind of people that I hope watch this program and consider the ideas of techno-communism, people who live on the razor's edge in the fascist United States, people living in a tent, like our friend AJ, people without great resources. But even if you are a person more of the bourgeois, I hope that you will consider that your fates are intertwined. It doesn't matter how many zeros you have in your bank account. It's kind of why I've set some of these things aside. It doesn't matter how many zeros you have in your bank account on a dead planet. No, indeed. But I do hope that you'll stay safe out there and solidify your position. Use what resources you have at your disposal, even if it's just your loud idiot voice, like Benzyme, which is censored quite a lot. I'm going to talk a little bit about censorship today. I've actually got a whole beat sheet that I'm going to work from, not just blathering randomly, but still blathering quite randomly. So yes, fascism isn't going to defeat itself. The planet isn't going to save itself. And you're taking the more comfortable path, most of you, which is the path that ultimately leads to the graveyard. So I hope that you will do the better thing and consider the ideas of revolution, and I contend equally important techno-revolution, because there's no more powerful set of tools than emerging technology, most particularly brain-computer interfaces and advanced algorithms, things to do with emerging computer science. And I don't know the shape of that. That's part of that's the name of the show will certainly be suggestive of that. I was looking at some New York Times propaganda. We read some New York Times imperialist propaganda before. This was a naked, transparent, shameless propaganda, and it was spinning the burning of Russian books in Odessa, I believe. The Ukrainian Nazis destroying Russian books. And it was spinning that as them, the Ukrainian Nazis, resisting Russian propaganda. They were the resistors of imperialist propaganda in this imperialist propaganda narrative that's created. It was amazing to me. And then I was just looking at the image, and I was thinking of Fahrenheit 51, this futuristic censorship dystopia, and what our futuristic censorship dystopia has turned out to be. We're now kind of in the time when a lot of classic science fiction was written, we're now in that future, and that future has proved very different. I mentioned cyber censorship a moment ago. I've been banned and shadow banned from untold accounts just for saying you probably should fight for a humane and sustainable economic system. You probably shouldn't be so friendly towards fascists. I've been banned many, many times and shadow banned many, many more times. Too many to count. And you might say, but Ben, I've also seen you yell at people and kind of show your ass a little bit. Okay, I try not to do that so much. Think about that. The world of Fahrenheit 451, where censorship is described in pretty literal terms, the burning of books, versus the censorship that we actually have, where today, where people are burning books right now, but the real censorship is things like social media and media being micromanaged in such a way that pro-fascist voices are given endless coverage, giving the biggest megaphone that they can get away with giving pro-fascist voices, and everyone else, people who would otherwise be operating pretty consistently in service to the a more humane economic system, are shadow banned, are tamped down little by little by little by little, such that people don't notice this sort of thing. They don't think about it. When you tag a bunch of people, I tag people and stuff sometimes. When you tag a bunch of people, you find other Marxists. You find people saying, "What are you tagging people for? You egomaniac, you insensitive person, right?" But they don't think about the exact stripping away of their voice. The flip side of that, they don't think about that as a faux pas, as an egregious action, right? They don't think about the cyber banning and cyber manipulation of their world as the upsetting thing. The upsetting thing is someone trying to counter that in some small way by tagging people in a revolutionary in something to do with a revolutionary message. That's the bad thing, right? So you can't even find Marxists who are fully immune from a fascist program. But of course, they're much better, and an awful lot of people are able to resist this sort of thing. It's not. Sometimes I'm critical of Marxist communities. Is only because I want us to be better. The tools of techno-revolution do need to be used. These most powerful tools of history, and people aren't using them. I have people will say to me all the time, "What are you saying? What are you talking about techno-communism for? This isn't different. You should just be extolling the virtues of the immortal science of Marxist-Leninism because these are the same ideas." No shit, they're the same ideas. I say that all the time. But the failings in all of our cultures, all of the subcultures surrounding this, and all of the dominant cultures surrounding this are quite clear, because there is not the focus on these most powerful tools of history being used correctly. So clearly, there is a job to be done, which I'm trying to do, and you're telling me not to do it because it's not precisely in keeping with your aesthetic. Most people involved in policy clubs and political undertakings generally are a little too concerned with aesthetics, a little bit too concerned with kind of surface level things, less so concerned with maybe triggering a world revolution. So they would say, "Oh, you just say you're a communist," and after you say to them a few times, I will start doing that as soon as people out in the larger world recognize what a powerful tool emerging technology is and start using it in revolutionary ways and insisting it be used in revolutionary ways. After you say that a few times, then they stop saying that, right? They realize that they're being liberal pieces of shit relative to yourself. It's not to say that these people are liberal pieces of shit, but everybody's been a liberal piece of shit relative to somebody else, and you start to realize not to do it. Everybody's done it at some point. Well, I'll probably do it again 100 times. Not the end of the world, but we have to try to be better. I'm going to read an article in just a second that has to do with another significant quantum computing milestone. And the reason that I focus on quantum computing and hive mind things, brain-computer interfaces, so much is not because I think that they are so much more significant than other computer science emerging disciplines and emerging technologies. That's not exactly the point of this. The point is to try to inspire people in that way. Vladimir Lenin, I'm going to share this picture because I enjoyed it. There was a proposed and nearly built Lenin statue that was basically a freestanding business park of some size, and a beautiful design. And Vladimir Lenin was a beautiful mind, and I think deserved that kind of. He deserves to still be kept under his body, kept and preserved and discussed by serious thinkers as they visit the city of Moscow. But Vladimir Lenin predicted in 1920 that by 1921, 1922, there would be a world revolution. That the revolution that had occurred in Russia and then spread from a Russian Soviet state into the larger Soviet Union in the course of just a few short years. He predicted that would then spread to a world revolution involving all of the countries. And that would have happened were it not for elitists attacking the interests of working people. The reason that we don't have a better world today, a dramatically better world, one there where there's not cyber manipulation on a grand scale, one where there's not fascist powers destroying the earth. The reason we don't have a dramatically better world is because folks, maybe folks quite a lot like you, were willing to stand by and allow elitist institutions and bad actors to undermine their own interests. That is because that is all that a communist revolution is. It's acting in the people's interests. And these things are mystified. It's turned into a team sport. I don't like the Rosenbergs. Well, why don't you like the Rosenbergs? They're my enemies. I'm got to fight my enemies. Yeah, that's a level of analysis of anti-communists. We have to fight our enemies. And these are fascists. And you, as you allowed this world to unfold rather than fighting against it, have proven to be a fascist sympathizer overwhelmingly. Now, if you're watching the show, you're maybe not quite so much of a fascist sympathizer, but there's 400 million people here in this the heart of the imperial core, the United States, and an awful high percentage of them are fascist sympathizers. They would never allow one country to overthrow 100 other countries' governments in the interest of fascism if they were not fascist sympathizers. They would simply never allow it. There would be a million people tearing down Capitol Hill, tearing down the White House, and so forth. If they really knew what they were, and they really knew what their country was. Lenin was someone who was willing to, roll the dice. He was somebody who was willing to say, it is time to extol the virtues of this world revolution to such a degree that we will make this bold proclamation that a world revolution will occur in our time. This is why I focus on these two particular areas a little more than perhaps a serious computer scientist, person with a much deeper understanding of computing languages, computing architecture, might look at this program and say, Ben, the quantum computing might not ever prove to be that important. Ben, the brain-computer interfaces are kind of a hot mess. Who knows if these things that you're saying, people say this to me sometimes, who knows if these things that you're saying are really going to prove to be quite so significant as you say. And that's true. Think of the Fahrenheit 51 comparison versus the cyber sensors of the dystopia we live in. That's about how different the things that we're imagining will be from what will actually transpire, a thing which we have little way of knowing. Now, as you have artificial general intelligence, a feature of artificial superintelligence might be predictive mechanisms well beyond that of a human being. Artificial general intelligence is something like a human being, able to predict like a couple hours in advance. You're going to go to the Olive Garden. Artificial superintelligence is something that can predict things a little further in advance. So the truism of saying we have no way of predicting the future, it's true today, it's true of human beings, might not always be true of all endeavors. Nevertheless, this is I hope, just as I've said that my name is Ben Zion, a provocative and outlandish character, to be sure, because I hope to do as comrades Lenin and Stalin did, who took pseudonyms, noms de guerre, in the interest of inspiring people. And, Stalin's name, the Man of Steel, that's a little unusual, right? If you met somebody just on the subway and then said, yeah, I'm the Man of Steel, you'd be like, sure thing, buddy. But that's not really the point, right? Embarrassment, not a real thing. But revolutionary thought and action can be a real thing. And when you're willing to roll the dice, and this is probably not true of Ben Zion, but it's certainly true of Vladimir Lenin. Vladimir Lenin is well remembered relative to people of his time who were considered important people, social democrats and titans of industry. Nobody gives a shit about those people anymore. They're lost to history. Not all the social democrats, but you know what I'm saying. But people remember this person because he was willing to do that thing. He was willing to do the thing that ordinary folks would never consider taking a nom de guerre and never consider extolling the virtues of a world revolution would not be willing to do in their lost history. And life is not a competition for opprobrium, but it is. If you think of it as some kind of competition, it should be a competition to unite humankind to better things, to see something like universal super longevity, this term that I use to describe things that I discussed in the last few shows, life extension science being integrated into a public health service to see that all human beings can live as long as they want. You say, I'm just a regular person, I don't want to live forever. Okay, hey, who's going to put a gun to your head and tell you have to live forever? And what is living forever? Have I lived forever yet? Have I lived forever yet? We're just talking about just higher and higher public health standards and higher standards of living. That's all that any of this is about. It's about taking care of people, and most of the people, like in the group that I sat in on last night, the people could just kind of laid an egg by my presence. I think I didn't go there to. I'm trying to be less provocative. I didn't go there to upset them. I should have just said, B or Ben or something in the Zoom room, and just left the video off and just listened to the presentation. But it tells wherever I go on Zoom, it just says been doing it. And I was like, I'll wear my hat, why not? And they it seems, I don't know for certain, but it seems like they kind of flipped out and didn't even do their presentation just because I was there. And they had like, Ben Science here, we're worried that something will happen. So then Stolyarov shows up and does a presentation about the virtues of techno-fascism. We have to show some resistance to the evils of communists. Maybe it was already scheduled, maybe it would have been there anyway. So the point is, this it seems my presence in this way seems to have driven some of these folks to distraction. So much so that I didn't get to see the presentation that I wanted to see, which I'm not even certain that they even ended up doing it, which was this organization Czar Labs talking about stage 0 cancer detection, something that would have significance if integrated into this public health service that's able to treat aging as a disease and take care of folks, it's allowing them to live as long as they want and no longer if you don't want to live a long time, that's your business, but you will, like your choice to live, imagine another society where people are living 40 years or so, and you say, what if you could live to be 110? And they say, I don't care, but people did live to be 110 back then, and they just did it as a matter of course. Well, I'm 90, one more time around the sun, and in recent decades, that has included regular doctor visits. Right? You're probably a little less likely to live to be 110 if you never go to the doctor at all. You might want to do that, and that's not some big moral dilemma in your mind. Oh, should I go to the doctor? What would this bioethicist say? Bioethicist. But you just do it because you're alive and you're like, I kind of still want to eat some breakfast tomorrow, maybe walk around in the sunshine. So you do it, and that's what would happen with longer lifespans, right? No need to turn it into this fucking opera. It's just your life. Aubrey de Grey calls this the deathist trance, the idea that people are resistant to longer lifespans to such a degree that there's more or less an impermeable cultural barrier to this, and that I think is unfortunate. I think that some of the people who use this kind of language are maybe guilty of not focusing nearly enough on the bare bones of it, which is a public health service that would treat aging as a disease. Most of these people are more interested in technology than they are in what technology's implications would be for their brothers and sisters. So they never in their life, most of the tech people alive today in the West, they never in their life will utter a single breath for supporting a public health service at all. The difference between many millions of lives being extended today or not, they'll never utter a single breath in support of other things along those lines that would save lives, a housing authority, and labor protections, job guarantees. Those three things are the bare minimum for a kind of society that can then achieve universal super longevity. And that's why you should be a socialist, because people who are not socialists don't support those things. People who are socialists do support those things, and their loved ones and the people around them are better for it. Well, I've explained a little bit now about why I kind of read some of these articles, why I ignore some of the others. You could probably look at this program and say, well, Ben's just reading the TLDR feed that I could read it on my phone. But I do try to have some kind of a message to it. It's english.news.cn, a Chinese news source. It's English version, and it's Xinhua Net, XINHUA net. Installing a quantum computer at a eChina lab. So I thought, talking about quantum computing in the broad strokes, even taking some liberties about what that might look like in a few years, not really knowing too much about the science. Let's contextualize that in a little different way by having a look inside of one of these places that's now having commercial level availability of quantum computers in China. Businesses are able to use quantum computers, and now in China, nowhere else in the world is this really true. This is a harbinger of the thing that I said on the very last show and once or twice before, which is that that hive mind scenario. So imagine how the West builds their hive mind, which is just a few mercenaries being paid a little extra money to be in the hive mind, and they don't really want to be there, but they need the money. And it's only a few people, because how many people can you realistically bribe to do something relative to inspiring a lot of people to actually want to do something? It's a small number. So these military personnel are in this little bunker, secret location probably, and they're connected to one another using sophisticated brain-computer interfaces. And they're what are they working on? Well, they're working on probably whatever the CIA wants them to work on, which would be bad things. Planning wars, planning the next Ukraine proxy war, doing dirty things, all the things the military-industrial complex does. So that's not great, but it's small, right? But then, this quantum computer being stably built in China and then being used by Chinese folks in larger and larger number, that's a harbinger of the hive mind that could come. And, it's not particular to China. It's particular to that socialist baseline being met. So you have people who are now transitioning from the socialist baseline to a techno-socialist set of operations. And most specifically, who are these people? They're not hiding in a bunkers doing secret dirty things. They're people who want a world revolution. They're people who want to be more connected to one another. They're people who want greater capabilities that would come with a brain-computer interface integrated with powerful superintelligence. Which would be kind of a little separate thing, but you are already able to be integrated by the brain-computer interface you have in your hand with the kind of superintelligence, this rudimentary superintelligence in the form of all the various services that you're able to access, like ChatGPT. So this outcome is an extension of what's already in place, a great awakening in connectivity. But if it does not occur with this revolutionary consciousness, then what you have is the kind of gaffes like the cyber censorship. It's not a gaffe, right? It's fascists did that. In the world where there's a world revolution that Vladimir Lenin attempted to undertake in the 1920s, in a world where that was allowed to occur, and fascists did not hold all of civilization back, that's a world where there's not today cyber censorship of a fascistic kind, where pro-fascist voices are given endless power, great amount of power, and everyone who is not a pro-fascist is quietly censored almost without their even realizing it. They realize it, but they feel that they have little recourse, which you have why you have to take revolutionary action. It's the only thing that these people understand. The reason that I focus on this hive mind things and quantum computing things so much more than perhaps the state of the science would necessarily lead you to, if you're looking at that exclusively today, is because we have a chance to maybe avoid those mistakes. Those were mistakes. Stymieing a world revolution, killing it in its cradle. Millions more people are dead because of this. Arguably billions. And the world is dying because of this. And we have the chance to see that those mistakes are not made. We don't know exactly the shape of that. right? Just as the world of tomorrow will be very different from the one that we are predicting it will be, at least as different as the difference between the world depicted in Fahrenheit 451, which was to raise credit, a stylized world, not a very literalistic depiction of advanced technology or anything of the kind, but at least as different generally as the worlds predicted today to have been have come to pass of today versus what we experience. The difference between Fahrenheit 51 and Facebook censorship, Twitter censorship, it's worlds apart, and so we have a difficult time thinking what the world of 2045 and thereabouts will be like. But we can say with absolute certainty that this willingness to take a revolutionary stance, even on the part of a relatively small number of people, that's why I'm going to keep doing the show, even if whether there's thousands of people watching getting to see it or dozens of people getting to see it, even a small number of people taking that revolutionary consciousness further in furtherance of this techno revolution, recognizing the power of these tools. This is the difference between those gaffes or a better world, those fascist institutions determining how this kind of thing is used. And this is why you're terrified of emerging technology. A person who'd never encountered a fascist institution, never witnessed it destabilize continents and contribute to the immiseration of millions, would not be terrified at all of emerging technology. It would be like, what wonders we shall build in this glorious golden age of ours as enlightened, trusting human beings. You don't live in that world, so you're rightly terrified. But you're terrified, unfortunately, about the wrong things. You're blaming the victims in this way because the fascists are the ones that need to be defeated.